Okay everyone, welcome back. We're finally moving on from scenes and layers, and while they're very important because a lot of people have trouble just getting the hang of what to do with them, the more interesting stuff is to do with what's inside the scenes, and today we're starting with a bit of that, and we're going to be talking about materials and lights and textures and stuff like that. So today I'm starting with a new project. I've set up a new template project using Cocos3d and the Cocos2d version 1. I've brought in the project, called it Material World, and refactored the layer and the scene to main layer and node scene. And there's our app delegate. And inside in the delegate, again, I've taken out that line just after the main layer is defined and brought it into the main layer where it says self CC3 scene equals node scene. And so the main layer should open up with that. And you might also notice that I've taken out the comments. That's just to make things cleaner. All the green stuff is very good in the templates and in the demos, so don't take it out too hastily, but just to clean things up, I just thought I'd take it out of the way. In our scene, the node scene, I've done a few changes. I've cleared out the comments again. I've set things up for this particular tutorial. What I've got is the backdrop is now going to be blue. The camera is as it was. This normally, when you set up the template, says cam, C-A-M, so it's that the lamp is actually attached to the camera and it moves relative to the camera. But what we're going to do is just put it at self so that we set a position for the lamp and then we know where it is. I've also got changed the lamp position slightly. It's now -2 on the X and it's up 2 on the Y and coming forward towards us by 2 on the Z. There's our res node. We'll talk a little bit more about that shortly. It's called cubes.pod, and everything else is pretty much cleared out. What I'm going to be doing is getting mesh nodes. I'm going to call them the mesh node, and whichever one I select will be the active one. And then we'll do various things with it. It's added here, and then we'll run the action on it just to show which one it is. Okay, so that's about that set up. The next thing I want to do is just look into Blender at the cubes blends that I've created, and we'll just see what that has that might be of interest. I'll just open it there. So this is basically it. It's just 3 cubes. The first one is standard. In edit mode, you can see it's just a basic cube, and I've added a material called the red material to it. The second cube is the same cube, but I've subdivided it by a lot, and I took out the central spar, and so it's a cube, but the middle of it is missing, and that's still got the same red material. And finally, then the cube here, I've opened it up in edit, split it, and then I selected one side of it and assigned a different material to that side of it, and that's called white material in the blend. The cubes are named above. There's this one is the whole cube, nothing but cube. This one is the split cube, and this one here is the mixed cube. Okay, and when you name them, I know you can recheck in your blend file and you can check it in your shaman file, but it is important to make sure that you have the right name, because when you start bringing them into the Cocos3d file, having the wrong name can do your head in. Okay, so that's that. I've saved that file, save, and where did I save it? In the Cocos3d project models cubes. It's saved there, and just cancel out of that. And then I've exported it, and I've exported it to, I'll just do a re-export just to show you what happens. There it is, cubes.pod. Export the pod, and up comes our PBR geopod, and it's got geometry, materials, transformations. The actions are clicked, and user options to open the shaman, just to show you how to use that. So it's exported, I've pressed OK, shaman opens. And inside there you can see our 3 cubes, and one interesting thing to note is that on the mixed cube there's actually a subdivision of the meshes. There's submesh 0 and submesh 1. We also just have the red material and the white material. Okay, so just close off shaman, therefore I'll just minimize it there because that submesh could be handy shortly. So I've dragged it into the project cubes.pod, and in the node scene it's ready to go. So the first thing I'm going to do is run the project, and all I've done is set CC3MeshNode, the mesh node, to the res nodes get mesh node named whole cube. So that should be just straightforward. He hoped. Running, linking, the iPad is coming up, and there you go. Red cube is the red cube is spinning. You can see the light is to the front of it there, the shine is coming off it, and it's just a simple red cube, and the camera has focused in on it. So close that down, and next thing we want to do is I'll change it to the mesh node is now equal to the split cube. Okay, and just to show you down the action there is the partial roll. It's just doing a roll around the y-axis, the up-axis, and repeating forever on the mesh cube, whichever one I select up here. So I'll run that again, and let's see what we get. Runs again, and now you can see we've got this split cube, and it's running fine. The only thing is we might want to see the insides of the cube, and to do that, I'll just close it again. What we need to do is set this, let's see, we call it the mesh node. Mesh node that should call back faces is what it is. And what we're saying to it now is that we don't want it to call the back faces because we want to see them. It's normally set to yes, because like in the first example we had a full cube and you don't particularly need to see the inside faces. But for this one we would like to see the inside faces. So they're the back faces in this case. And if we run it again now, you should see that the inside part of the cube is displaying. But the thing to note that this is it's a mesh node, and it's displaying as 1, okay, as distinct from. When we go back in now, I comment that one out, and we'll go back in, and this time I'm going to uncomment the mesh node for the mixed cube, okay. And when I run this, you should find that we should get an error. Boom, we do. And the reason for the error is, if you go down here into your console, find your error, it says retrieved node mixed cube is not a CC3 mesh node. And that's kind of what I was trying to demonstrate here, is that this mixed cube is actually made up of 2 materials. So it's got a mesh node. When you talk about a CC3 mesh node, you're talking about a mesh that is basically the same material, whereas in this case we have 2 meshes with different materials. So the split cube, even though there's a split, it is the same material. It's all considered one mesh, so you can use it as a mesh node. But in this one, because it's split materials, you can't call it a mesh node. So to access this guy, we have to use a node. We have to use the node, and we should, I suppose, be specific and call that the node. And when we go down here, we add the node, and the action should be on the node. Okay, we don't need to call the back faces because we've already we're going to be closing it up. Okay, so if I run that now, we should see that the mixed cube runs as 1, and you can see it's spinning around there as one particular node. Okay, now what you might want to do, in that case, that's kind of an example of what if you had a full character who had all different materials on him, and once you've got them all assembled, you just run it as one complete node. You put an armature on it and run it as one complete node. Whereas you might actually want to get access to the individual mesh nodes, and to do this, that's where this sub-mesh thing we were talking about in the Shaman comes in. So what I'll do is I'll uncomment all that, and instead of putting in the node, I have here the CC3MeshNode mixed cube 1, which is this here, mixed cube / submesh 0, and mixed cube 2 is the mesh node with mixed cube submesh 1. And what I'm going to do is with the second one, I won't call the back faces, we add the two of them. Get rid of that line because we don't need it anymore. And down here, I'll just animate the one. Which one did I put the back faces on? It was MC2. MC2. Okay, and if we run it now, I think we should be okay. You'll see that we have both of them. We have no action running on the red material version, but the white material one is rotating around because it's separate. So there you are. That's essentially the difference between a node and a mesh node and how you access them. Okay.